Okay, we are.
Conglo is here for 2023 presidential election.
Iron Lady Records, sweet sound.
Hey, mi dani o, sensei konege no me. Mi dani o, sensei. Kuna mewe mi dani o, sensei konege no me. Ni ele kane we la to kanu legese, sensei konege no me. Patola ke o sensei. Wase kwala ba ke la we mi sensei konege. Mi dani o, sensei. Kuna mewe mi dani o, ni ele kane we la to kanu legese, sensei. Councillor Tiawan is here to reflect our man on la.
Well, good evening, folks. This is the Bron Talk Show, and tonight we are back on in our studio, and we will be having the talk show tonight discussing issues concerning the national elections in our country. Tonight, we will be calling on people to vote for Councillor Tiawan Se Gonglo, because your voice and your vote will uncover the future of Liberia. More besides, we'll be talking about burning national issues. To be precise, we'll be discussing about the LPP preparation for the elections. We will also be looking at whether the National Election Commission is ready to conduct this election. That will be an open discussion, and many other questions we will be going through within a period of 1 hour. We will also be looking specifically at, we stand to be corrected, but we have been looking in the news, we have been listening to hear whether Vice President Joseph N. Boakai, who is the presidential candidate for the Liberian People's for the Unity Party, has made a statement concerning the death of the individuals claimed to be members of the Congress for Democratic Change in Lofa County. We'll be looking at that. We'll be talking about that tonight. Having with me tonight is Dr. James Kwanado, and the both of us in studio will be discussing these important issues. Welcome, Dr. Doe, to this platform again tonight.
Thank you, Comrade Zoga, for having us once again. It's always a pleasure being on the Brum Talk Show, and again, we have to thank you for keeping the show going.
All right. We appreciate you being here tonight also, and not to keep, because of time, we're going to start up right away. We're going to start discussion of important questions we have here. We first of all want to look at the national elections preparation for these elections. As we all know, this 10th of October will be the general elections, presidential and legislative elections. This time around, Liberians go to the polls to elect the president and vice president for the country, and also senators and representatives. Junior senators, we can say, because I've been seeing senators still have time to go. Dr. Doe, in this light, given the fact that the national election is still dragging her feet on other important aspects that she has to take care of before the elections, do you think the national elections is prepared to conduct this election for 2023 in Liberia?
Thanks, Comrade Zoga. That is such an important question that has really occupied the attention of those of us who have been so involved with this election process, both from our party level and from the personal level. I'm an optimist. I like to be hopeful that the National Elections Commission will would conduct free, fair, credible, and transparent elections. But I'm an optimist, and I want to be cautious as well, because so far,
Oh, we lost Dr. Doe. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Doe was trying to.
the
Okay.
yeah, the commission has a huge responsibility that we recognize. They have reported that there are about 2.4 million registered voters. These are voters from all walks of life of our society and that come from different regions of the country. 2.4 million voters. Now, how do we know that those voters are actually 2.4 million? The one thing that the commission has been required to do by law is to publish the voters list, what in electoral terms they refer to as the final registration roll, FRR. Now, that roll supposed to be a list, is an election list. It's like you in class, the professor or the teacher comes to class, you have a list of students in your class, and you want to be sure whether John Brown is actually a student in that class. So you call roll. Basically, that's what it is. You call roll to be sure that Zoga is in that class, I'm in that class, Flomo is in that class, and others are in the class. And then you verify with the office of the registrar if there's somebody missing or somebody in there that's not supposed to be there. You verify with the office of the registrar. So basically, that's what the commission's supposed to be doing. Publishing the list that will allow all political parties to look at the list and say, yeah, these people are truly registered to vote. And they are registered in the particular precinct or district they're supposed to be registered at. Now, the commission has been really dilly-dallying. They've been dilly-dallying. In the last week, they said it would have been ready. In fact, to the extent that our party, the Liberian People's Party, took the position that, look, we will go to the Supreme Court and file a complaint to compel the elections, the NEC, to publish this list. That was done. I think the commission, the Supreme Court convened, I understand, another political party. I think the Unity Party also filed a similar complaint. As of yesterday, the Supreme Court should have ruled that on the summons that was filed. I'm informed late today, I was informed that the commission had quickly released the FRR, but it was not a complete list. They released a list comprising only 14 counties, but the most populated county, Massarauga County, was left out. And they have promised to make that available either this evening or tomorrow, from what I was told today, speaking to some of my partisans on the ground in Liberia. So I'm saying all that to say that the commission work The NEC work is still incomplete. And that has not built confidence in the process. A lot of Liberians are very leery that is the commission truly prepared to take us to elections next Tuesday? Or are we going to see another situation where very haphazardly the commission will rush to this election process? So that's where we are. I'm optimistic, but I'm cautiously optimistic. I know many of the international partners, the USA, European Union, African Union, ECOWAS, and several others are involved in the process. But we're still waiting to see, because I haven't seen any formal statement from the National Elections Commission to say, well, the list has now been issued. So we wait to see what happens in the next day or two.
All right.
I will
Thank you,
pause
Dr.
there.
Do. We wish to welcome Miss Sister Jeve Ubate. We wish to welcome her on this platform tonight. And thank you so much for coming, Miss Jeve. How are you today? How are you tonight?
Very well, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you
Yeah,
loud and clear.
yeah.
It's always a pleasure.
All right, and tonight our discussion is surrounding the election commission. We are kind of concerned with the process, with the ongoing process at the election commission, especially when they should have issued the FRR, that is final registration for the voters, so that the public could have the opportunity to look at that. But I think, well, like Dr. Doe said, we made some quick intervention by releasing some of the FRR today. But I mean, that's the discussion personally we have. I mean, what is your take on that? Is the national election prepared to hold the election for Liberia October 10, 2023? What is your take on that?
Like everything else in the country, we continue to struggle with just the standards of any particular exercise, especially as important as elections are in any country. Even the more mature democracies tend to have challenges. And, everyone who, maybe even the youngest person, maybe a fifth grader, can understand the importance of being very transparent in this all important exercise for democracy. And so, I'm not surprised that the National Elections Commission of Liberia is struggling to maintain that aura of transparency. Because even if let's look at it this way, even if there's nothing wrong and it's just a technical issue going on, maybe they want to be extra vigilant and extra careful to make sure the lists reflect the reality. The fact that, we're just a week away and we still don't have that makes everything suspect. So it doesn't look well for them, whatever the reason. But it would certainly point towards the, I guess, the bedrock of fraud. I'm not saying that there's any fraud involved. I'm saying it gives that appearance. Once you let things linger this long, it certainly gives that appearance, and it puts suspicion on your overall ability to conduct free and fair elections. If right at the onset we're beginning to see these kinds of issues, and to be honest, um, I don't know why this would be an issue. Like, the registration should be a process that occurs over multiple years, not just within weeks before elections. We're speaking of national elections. Certainly, you need a lot of resources to get it done. So all of that should have been well done, done well in advance of this, this actual exercise. So those are my thoughts, just preliminarily, given the fact that I have to admit, I haven't looked too much into the details of why they would be this delayed.
All right, thank you so much. Let's see whether we can build a case on this scene, FFFRR, and see whether we are right in that, speculating whether there is, quote unquote, a 90 to 85 to 90% probability of there being a fraud. Now, what is the reasons for releasing the FRR? What is the reason for releasing the FRR?
If I may jump in there, uh, Sister Jebe mentioned an important point, and that has to do with, this particular list. At this point in time, we shouldn't have even been talking about it. This is a list that is built up over several election cycles. I recall in 2017 when we had our prior elections, I think a few parties had some issues with the results of the elections. I think it was the Bromskin Party or Liberty Party, and they filed a complaint with the Supreme Court. And I do recall at that time that the court ruled that even though the irregularities that occurred during that 2017 elections had not risen to the level where it needed to, where there was a need for a call to have the elections redone. What the court decided on was that they called upon the NEC to begin to improve the voters' roll, to make those needed corrections within the voters' roll. But to really answer your question, the purpose of that list, like I said in the beginning, for some of us who have been teachers, educators, it's like a class list. You go to class, you issue a list of students that would be in your class, and you verify. So the FRR basically is to verify that indeed those that the Elections Commission have reported to be registered voters are truly eligible to vote. And what the eligibility means is that, is John Brown truly John Brown? Does John Brown really exist? Because mind you now, the last election cycle was 6 years ago. Some people have passed, some people have moved from one precinct to the other. Is John Brown truly registered in precinct 11, in District 11? So that kind of verification needs to take place with the political parties. Political parties have to verify that indeed those who are truly on the list are legit, they're eligible to vote, and they satisfy all the electoral requirements to vote on October 10. I mean, I will put it in those simple terms, and I tend to agree with Sis Jebed that, I think the NEC itself have made this thing so complicated and has made people to become suspect, because of the way in which they have handled it. There shouldn't be any secrecy to this. There shouldn't be any delays. Yeah, you can delay to be sure that you want to do an efficient work. But the extent of the delay now is way past the normal time, because the law stipulated that this thing should have been done 30 days ago to the election date. But so far, they've only done a partial work. Like I said earlier, I'm told either yesterday or today, they released a list for 14 counties, but Montserrado County was not ready to be released. It was not ready to be released. So I don't know when Montserrado will be released. And I think once Montserrado is released, that will complete the process. So we'll wait to see what happens. But again, they have not really built confidence for Liberian people to say, well, this commission is truly ready and we're all ready to go to the polls. Even though our people are very anxious, they want to go to the poll and put this thing behind them. But these are some of the reservations people are having.
Okay, thank you so much. But before...
Wait a minute. What's up with this other thing?
Anyone talking in the back?
Full of tears.
You might hear some background from me. I apologize there.
Oh, okay. Before we go to the next discussion question or whatever topic we have to discuss, I want you to listen to this. I want you to listen to this. Take your time, and we're going to listen to this very carefully. And then we're going to come back to major reasons why there is a delay into this.
And I see if I'm gonna accuse you, when you testify on an info here, or you swear.
No, I mean, when you there, did you see her coming to job man we are host? Did you?
We live in the same house. We live in the same house. Yes, I say I can't say that they're together now, but I can establish that they did have a relationship. I was there. There's somebody I had breakfast with. There's somebody I sat down with. I'm not telling you, say, Gibson told me or Stanton told me.
So did she cook with Joey? Did she eat with Joey? And you ate along with them?
I mean, Stanton, we live in the same house. We ate together. We sat down. We talked. Wow. We laughed together. I'm not putting this up in a crazy way to say. I'm saying yes. Let's watch out. There could be a compromise there, and for us who know, we must be clear about it. It's our patriotic responsibility. I don't want to dive deep into people's life and all that stuff, but it is established that I know, and I'm not saying somebody told me. I know her proximity to the president. So what will stop her from declaring what he wants her to declare? What?
Wow. Let me pause you there because I got so many questions and a lot of people are concerned. They're sending me messages. Question.
All right. So that is George Solo. George Solo is the former chairman for the CDC. He was chairman for CDC 2012 and sometime of 2013. That's George Solo right there speaking. Now, he said that George, we are the president, girlfriend is the National Election Commission. And he confirmed, and he's saying that there is no reason why this woman will not declare what George wants him to do. So there was speculation that is it possible for her to read in favor of the government? That was the speculation. And then he brought that out. So again, no doubt about it. This is the man who was the chairman of the party, 2012. And this is the man who says that he lived together in the house. I mean, we all heard him. So what do you make of that video? I know maybe sometimes you might have watched that, or maybe you never had the time.
No, this is news to me. I'm sorry, Dr. Doe. Let me jump in because
Go right ahead.
It's completely a bombshell for me. And this is why the world doesn't take Liberia seriously. There's no way the National Elections Chairman can be any way involved with any of the candidates for presidency or any other aspect of the elections, you know. And because we're human beings, we know that we will form relationships, and some of those relationships will conflict with our duties. The law has a place for what you do in those circumstances, and you must, under conscience or under the law of the land, recuse yourself from such positions if you happen to have that kind of overlap. But absolutely, there's no way she's going to be unbiased if that is the case. The only thing that's left to do is to confirm whether this report is true. If at any time in the past or present this is to be confirmed, then that disqualifies her immediately. Absolutely.
There you go. So that was the yes. Go ahead, Doctor Doe. That's a bombshell, right? like
Yeah, it is indeed a bombshell. I think I saw some aspects of that show. I know the Spawn show has their own style. Sometimes it can be comical. Sometimes there is truth underneath what they usually put out there. But it certainly speaks to the need for having such a commission. The commission itself, it's quote unquote, it's not a truly independent commission. This is a commission that is very partisan based. Many of the people who make up that 9-person commission, is my understanding that they all come from the CDC, the Congress for Democratic or Coalition for Democratic Change. So on top of what we're hearing now, which looks like a bombshell, it even adds to the lack of credibility of that particular commission to really be free, fair, transparent in conducting these elections. This is why the Liberian People's Party is committed. If should we be given a privilege to assume state power, is committed to really reforming that commission so it becomes truly an independent, non-partisan commission, because that's what it ought to be, truly independent and nonpartisan. And again, as Jabez said, when these kinds of things happen, people with integrity, usually step aside, recuse themselves, from their prominent position they hold, so that at least you get the appearance that people are trying to be transparent. But this is not the case. We go into these elections really with a lot of situations that we shouldn't even be talking about today. The non-independent nature of the commission, this issue, the partisan nature of the commission, and then this recent one we're hearing about the fraternizing nature of the commission with the powers that be. So all these are complex issues, but we pray and hope we can go through this process. I think the important thing is it being free, fair, and credible. But that is indeed a serious situation.
We know that going to the elections, we have most of the candidates. In fact, all of the candidates, the presidential candidates, are all male, and some have female vice presidency, presidential candidate. Anyway, how is LPP? Is LPP a representative or other candidates? Do we have involvement of women into the campaign activities? in the election activities? Do we have more LPP senatorial candidates or representative candidates? If so, what are the challenges you think you're facing right now?
If I may, just a correction there. Yeah, there are 20 parties participating. Well, 20 presidential candidates. And out of that 20, just by way of correction, there are 18 male presidential candidates and 2 female presidential candidates. So you can see how our politics over and over continue to be dominated by the men versus the women. And as regards LPP, in terms of its legislative slate, is fielding 46 candidates running for both the Senate and the House. But again, the party, out of that 46, there are only 7 female candidates, all of whom are running for the House in different districts, in different counties. So, like the national problem where we continue to see the continued underrepresentation of females in these elections. LPP is also affected by that. We only got 7 females running. I think 2 from Montserrado, 1 from Bombay, 1 from Nimba, 1 from Cape Mount, 1 from River G, and 1 from Maryland. 7 of them. Yeah. So that's how it's looking for LPP. And then overall, maybe I ought to throw these other statistics in. I don't know the exact figures, but what I do remember, I remember the percentages of all those running to be senators and representatives. Only 15% are females overall.
Okay.
That from the figure I saw from NEC, only 15% are females running to be senators or representatives, and the rest, of course, 85% are all males. Okay. But for LPP, as I said, it's 7 out of 46 of the legislative slate we are fielding.
All right. Since Javed, looking at that, do you think what are some of the challenges, if you can give, what are some of the challenges you're saying the female candidates are facing?
So I think I've brought this to our attention multiple times, but it bears repeating. So I'll go ahead and say that once again. We need to really graduate from where we think that having women participate in, political decision making, running for public office, and all such activities. We need to move past the point where we think it's just a formality. Just the very way of thinking progressively means that you try to engage as many participants of your populace as possible. And in some places, women outnumber men. I'm speaking of just the sheer numbers. But be that as it may, let's assume it's 50-50. The fact that we can't even get a good 20% of women participating in politics and other leadership roles in and around our country, as is the case with many other countries. But at least let's just focus on Liberia for now. The fact that we're still struggling just adds to the litany of issues and challenges our country continues to bear. And why is it important? Because without proper representation, we will continue to have lopsided governance. What do I mean by that? I mean governance where the focus is primarily the focus of those, majority that make up the leadership, which if it's mostly men, then they will continue to think only of those issues that impact men predominantly. So there's no consideration, or there's little consideration for the plight of women and women's issues. Not that we're not human beings, because we know that women's rights are human rights, but will a man be concerned about our hospitals and the maternity section of the hospitals only when his wife or his daughter or his sister has to go to deliver? But a woman will think about these things all the time because she is a woman. So that is a concern. And talk about what are some of the barriers to women entering politics and leadership roles. It's just plain and simple. There's a bias against women, especially in the African setting. It's always thought that women are just good for maybe how they look and how they make men feel, that, we don't really bring much to the table. And we can understand why that would be the case, because if you don't educate your girls, then you're going to have a generation of uneducated women, or women that aren't qualified. And I know the case for Liberia is a bit different. We don't lack qualified women. We have women that have, we had a female president. She made history in the world. So we acknowledge all of that. And we certainly have many, many women that are qualified educationally and otherwise to take on leadership roles. But what I'm speaking of is that there is this bias against women, so that we aren't seen as true contributors. Usually we'll be put into places of leadership just to fill out the token representation, so it can be said, aha, we do have one or two women, but it's hardly ever taken seriously. Even when given positions, the women are relegated to positions like the gender ministry and other ministries that aren't particularly seen to be, key leadership structures in the overall governance of the country. It's a lot, but I don't even want to sidetrack what our issue is with women, because it's just one of the many things. Because even overall, the general population is suffering from bad governance. Administration after administration. So I'm not even picking on only the incumbent. I'm looking at the history of this country, 175 years, and we still are struggling to just get it right, even at the basic level. So it's a lot of different problems, which we can talk about women's issues all day long, but it's an overall problem.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Tubate, for that comprehensive talk about the participation of women in politics. And there is one thing that I also want to say here to our men, the reasons why women are talking about the rights is not to take the position of the men. That's not your aim. I want you to get that very plain and clear. They understand, especially the lady speaking to you, she's a Christian, she's a godly woman, and there is the reason why God has made both male and female. But the search for equality is that we are all being created equal before God, and women has the same capacity to work. Women can be mechanics, that's what she's saying. Women can be president, and more besides, things that has to be prioritized for women. Men don't see that because it is not us. Our our biological makeup is not what we see, but for them they see. So the more they are involved in politics, the more they will see these things that they see as a woman and begin to address those issues. We're not saying that the man president do not address those issues, but not in totality. Okay, so we'll go back to our discussion tonight. The next questions we're going to be looking at will be: is the LPP prepared to go to this election, Dr. Doe? You being the platform and you being the I mean, who does all of the writing of this party, where we should go, our direction. Is it right for us to go into elections? This is what we would do if we win, Dr. Doe. Is the Liberian People's Party ready for this election? And
Yeah, I would
yes,
say,
and if yes, what one thing can you identify to convince us that we are ready for the elections?
thank you, Comrade Zola. But just before I answer that question, on the just want to backtrack a little bit on the issue of women's participation in politics, and I think Jabez struck a very important point, and I just wanted to practicalize that when she talked about lopsided governance. Because if you don't have the full participation of women in governance, there's a tendency to be insensitive to women issues. For example, there are two issues that Liberia that has to do with women that Liberia has is very high, has occupies a very high place on the international agenda, and that has to do with the issue of infant mortality rate in the country, where more kids are dying, and the issue of maternal mortality rate in the country, where women are dying in childbirth. So those two issues are really interconnected. Liberia often ranks very low on those two issues. Now, as serious as those issues are, and let me throw this other one in there: the issue of rape. As serious as these three issues are, that are greatly connected to women, nobody in our governance structure, including the current president, has really taken upon themselves to make that, to prioritize that and say, let's do something to reduce rape in this country. Let's do something to reduce the high maternal mortality rate in the country. Our women are dying in childbirth. And let's do something to reduce the high infant mortality rate in the country. Children are dying before they even reach the age of 5. I mean, you look at the United Nations figures, you look at other international figures, Liberia ranks very, very low, very, very low. And as I said, it's a reflection of the kind of lopsided governance we have in the country, because nobody at the legislative level is advocating for this, let alone the president of the country is advocating that some things be done. I've never heard any Liberian representative or senator take up that kind of issue to say, this is something we need to do something about. So I just wanted to cite those examples as to how important it is to bring the women perspective to the governance of our country. So those issues men sometimes are not conscious of or insensitive to can be placed on the table. That's why it's important. But to answer your question, is LPP prepared for October 10th? And I answer in the affirmative and say, yes, we are prepared. All of our candidates, our presidential and vice presidential candidates, if people have been following them, they're all over the country. I think today our presidential candidate, he was in Nimba And then the vice presidential candidate, Dr. Yakpawudo, was in Bong County. Uh, the many of the field people I call foot soldiers, are all over the country. I mean, today I was just monitoring. I was seeing our people everywhere, passing out flyers, passing out posters. I mean, talking to people one-on-one, young people. They were in the market settings. They were at the schools, various schools. I'm told they're planning to have a big rush this Sunday at the churches. So there's a lot of, despite the fact that we have our own challenges as a political party, but we're doing the best we can to be out, to have a visible presence, to continue to encourage people to vote for our presidential and vice presidential candidate, come October 10th. So a lot has been happening there on the ground from the party level. So much preparation have gone into these last few weeks, and they taking advantage of every minute, every hour to do some things that will encourage people to go to the polls and vote for Gonglo and Yakpawudo, number 6. So that is happening as I speak to you. That is happening.
All right, thank you, Dr. Doe. Yes, you wanted to go back?
No, I'm good.
All right, thank you, Dr. Doe. Before we go to Javed, I just wanted to add on something that you didn't add on when you were naming those things that affect women. One thing you didn't bring up was domestic violence and what is the crime effect of domestic violence. We see that in our country every day, and there is a comprehensive research I'm doing on that, domestic violence and the crime effect on that. We didn't bring that out. Just lately, we heard that one lady was killed because she wanted to release the information pertaining to the drugs deal in Liberia. She was shot and killed by her husband, who works with the DEA or something like that. And so many other things happen in the country, especially against women. So the next question we have to talk about is we see there is violence, pre-electoral violence, or pre-election violence. Given the case in Lofa County, I watched that, and I'm not too brave to watch the one happen in Lofa County. I don't know what any of you look at that. I mean, it's so disturbing. And when I was on my way to work one morning, I didn't really want to watch that. And I don't want to go to that to say that I'm too weak in that, but it's so disturbing. Given the fact that a citizen of the country was murdered only because he is a part of another political party, whether or not it is an incumbent party or another party, he has the right. And even if he was involved in the violence somewhere else, I think there should be rule of law that would take that. I mean, there should be the law, or people should have him arrested and carry him to the proper authority instead of murdering him the way it was done. Given that fact, do you think the election will be violence free? Any of you can answer.
I'll jump on that one, Dr. Do. Pardon my jumping ahead.
Go ahead.
So again, this is news to me. I heard of the incident in Lofa County. I didn't know that a life had been lost.
2
So
lives.
even one is too many, is one life too many. No one should have to die just to exercise their civil duty. And what we don't understand, maybe all of us as Liberians need to understand, do we want democracy or not? Because we don't seem to be able to handle the repercussions of democracy. The very definition of it means that you should stand by if your constituents choose someone other than yourself. I don't care which party we're speaking of. If we don't know that When the time comes, you must be willing to relinquish power. Then let's not call it a democracy. Let's go back to, you know, totalitarianism or whatever other dictatorship we need to call it. But we should stop giving it the label of democracy when we don't intend for people to exercise their democratic rights. So someone is dead. That's deplorable. That's horrible. And what is everyone waiting for? Should we break out into another civil war because that family is aggrieved? And who knows what kind of retaliation may come about from that if no justice is executed against the perpetrators of that violence, and so on and so forth. So to ask the question whether or not the elections are going to be violence free is a moot point so long someone has already lost their life. And I'm hearing from the doctor that it's more than one person. So, there we have it. We've already failed in that point. But more than that, I can tell you this as a personal experience, and I think um, Mr. Zoga, we talked about this, where we mentioned how important poll watching is. So after all of the exercises of campaigning, of putting out the candidates, making sure that the voters have knowledge of, those who are running for office, what happens on election day? If that can so easily be thwarted by the misbehavior of polling station officers, magistrates, or any other officer of the elections, then we don't have free and fair elections. If even one vote will be discarded when it should be counted, or vice versa, where votes that are from ineligible voters, if none of that, if there are no checks and balances, then we don't have a democratic process. And again, what starts off very little can easily snowball into complete warfare. And none of us want warfare. We passed through the war. We're sick of it. We lost too many lives. The little infrastructure we had was all taken away. So who wants war? But what we're saying is that once you don't take care of the tiny details, like even this voters registration. To some it may be a technicality, but just having the proper role tells you it's the foundation for proving that everyone who's supposed to vote has opportunity to vote, and those who are not eligible will not vote. But we can't even get that out of the gate. So already we're casting dispersion on the process. And so down the line, whether it's the actual day, the polling stations, the tone has been set. And if that tune is not the right tune, then we foresee even more violence. God forbid, but that's the reality. There's prone to be violence where people are going to be dissatisfied with the process. We pray that maybe through the miracle of God, NEC can still, at this 11th hour, take some solid steps, maybe do some press conferences to give reassurance, maybe send the word out there to all of the polling stations that, listen, this thing has to be free, fair, transparent. The NEC has to do a little bit more than what they have already done to reinstill the confidence that everyone should have in the process, because right now they're failing at showing confidence. I personally spoke with the chair. The what's her name is Miss Lasana Brown, or Brown Lasana. Spoke with her about the poll watching, and unfortunately, it wasn't something that they could do. Um, they had the means. NEC has the authority to go to our international supporters, the UNDP, and ask for that kind of support. I mean, I think that when they asked for the support, it was done in such a nonchalant way. Of course, they came back and said, no, UNDP will not support poll watchers at the level that we were trying to do, which is to provide poll watchers for every single station so that every polling officer would know that they're being watched. That alone is a deterrent. When you know that you're being watched, you're going to behave a little better.
Yeah.
Your behavior will change. But when we asked them, we went to her directly. I didn't go through any deputy or assistant, went directly to her. She was gracious enough to listen, but the answer was no. No explanation, just no. And so here we are.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Tubate, for that information. Dr. Doe, you were not here. We have got 7 more minutes to leave this program, and we were still talking about whether there is whether there would be a violence during the elections, given those situations that happen around us, especially in Lofa, where 4 people were killed, not just one, but the one that I saw, it was very, very disturbing. Very disturbing. I think he ran in the house and people surrounded the house with rocks and sticks. And even he hid in the room and they were throwing stones through the window. He got hurt, he dropped. They looked for the room in which he dropped and they kept stoning him. They dragged him out of that place, brought him out, and mauled him to death.
Yeah, that is.
The photo is not good. So with that, there is a 70 to 80% probability of electoral violence, given the fact that out of the 20 presidential candidate or the parties have not addressed the issues of washing. So before we leave, the most important
I'm
thing.
sorry, can I just interrupt? Now that you give those graphic details, there should be an outcry. This is not normal. This is not behavior that we just look at and glance over. There should be an outcry. Where are the media outlets? Thank you for even carrying this in your corner of the world. But every outlet should have put this out there, and there should be an outcry that kind of behavior. The person is not doing any criminal behavior. And if they are doing anything criminal, there should be a justice system for them to go through due process, not for mob killing and for that to just go in vain. So, what's to stop it from happening again? There should be a public outcry. And I officially lend my voice to every voice that has condemned this act. It is reprehensible. It's outrageous. This is not a joke.
This is truly not a joke, and it doesn't portend well for October 10. I saw some of what transpired in Foya Lofa, and I think it's being reported at least 2 or 3 persons that died in the process. It was a clash between the Unity Party on the one hand and the current ruling party, the CDC, on the other hand. This took place in Foya, the home of the former vice president, Joseph Boakai, and it certainly deserves a real serious condemnation. I know I was just monitoring today that I think the only step the government of Liberia has taken is to send what they call a joint security force to Foya to investigate what transpired there. But the kind of voices that we need to condemn this, both from the government angle and from the opposition angle. I mean, everyone should be so outraged to really condemn this, because it's, as I said, it doesn't augur well for October 10th. And there's so many things that have even led to this process. The rhetorics coming from some of the opposition parties, namely the CDC, and we'll call out these parties, the CDC and the Unity Party, the kind of rhetoric that has been pulled out there. You know, people are almost like beating a war drum. These two former ruling party and currently the present ruling party, I mean, they've been at each other's throats, and I will hope that the international community will also say something. I think either the European Union put out a statement today, and the African Union calling for peace or something like that. You know, but that they need to go beyond that. They need to go beyond that, because all these parties, I think 2 months ago, signed a peace declaration called the Farmington Declaration, where all of them committed to ensuring that there be a violence-free elections. But again, they have not lived up to that declaration they signed. The two parties, CDC and the Unity Party, have not lived up to that declaration. In fact, our own presidential candidate, Tiawan Gongo, took upon himself, I mean, really demonstrating leadership about a month ago, went to the offices of every political party. I think he went to 10 or 15 parties, calling upon them, let's ensure that these elections be peaceful. Let's respect and uphold this very agreement we have signed. He went to all the parties. I mean, he was the only one who did that. You know, of course, the LPP has also issued a condemnation on what happened in Foya there. And, you know, like the topic tonight, your voices, your vote, you know, these are things we need to hear from all political parties should be speaking out on this, because, you know, we don't want to see another violence in our country. We've seen a whole lot of that. We really don't want a repeat of it. So we pray and hope this be the only situation. But the way these two political parties are going, you know, they really need to tone down. They need to tune down. This is why LPP, I think, makes a better alternative. You know, because we're all about peace. Our leaders have demonstrated this. You know, because the fear is that, and sorry not to belabor this point, the fear is that certain people have in some cycles is that what if is each of these two parties, these two former and current ruling parties, will they accept a result where either one of the parties will that make it to the next round? Will they accept that result? Because the two groups have extremists. They have extremists on both sides who have already positioned themselves to feel that they should win these elections. And the only organization that has the constitutional responsibility to declare somebody the winner is the NEC. But already these parties are promoting this idea of one round victory. You know, both groups are saying one round victory. So what if neither one of them achieve that one round victory? What happens? I mean, this is the kind of stuff we hope our international partners will really step in and say something about, because that's not political to be going, yeah, you can have hope and confidence that you can win the elections, but to already declare yourself as a winner before the results are even announced, that's dangerous. That's very dangerous. And it deserves condemnation from all quarters, from all sides. I will stop there on that one.
I just want to say quickly, I know you have to close, but just to add this, when you mentioned that one, Dr. Doe, you mentioned one is the incumbent and the other one is a former, that speaks to some of the problem. They have tasted the
Yeah.
power and therefore they are unwilling to relinquish it for anything, because for most people who have risen to that level, the office of the president is just seen as something for self promotion, self aggrandizement, nothing to do with being the leader of the people, but rather just an opportunity to enrich self. So therefore, there's that they've tasted of this power and they are unwilling to relinquish it.
Yes, thank you so much. I think we've lost Dr. Doe again, but at this time we have come close. We have come to the end of this program, and when we meet here again, that's going to be an appointed time, a special edition. And thank you so much, Sis Javet, for appearing on a very short note. And what will be your last? What will you want to say lastly? Dr. Doe, we are just about to close, and
Yeah.
we just gave each person 2 minutes to say your lies. I mean, appeal to the Liberian people for, I mean, what is your last thought on this show before we leave in the next 5 minutes? Any of you can start first. How you want to say hi to?
I'll give preference to our sister if you can start.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Doe. I just want to remind every Liberian, whenever they watch this, hopefully it'll be before October 10th, which is when Liberians in Liberia should be casting their vote, that they should never be perturbed by forces around them. Exercise this right that others have lost their lives for. Here's four more people that have lost their life in the cause of democracy. Do not let that blood go in vain. Do not squander yet another opportunity to make Liberia what it needs to be for every Liberian, not just a handful. So go ahead, step out and vote. Be very careful, try to control your emotions on the election day. I think canvassing is not ideal because that's where violence can arise. Just quietly cast your vote, but cast your vote for the right person, and you'll see the results. God is in control.
Thank you so much. Then we'll go to Dr. Doe.
Yeah, I just want to join my voice to Sister Jebet to call upon all of our people to really come out on October 10 and go to the polls and vote. Cast your vote for our candidate, Councillor Tiawanse Gonglo and Dr. Yakbawuro. Number 6. This is a very important elections. You cannot afford to sit home and say, well, whatever happens. No, you can't take that kind of attitude. This is an elections that will decide what kind of education system you want for your children, what kind of good hospitals you want, good clinics, good roads in the country, how we can put an end to the suffering and the poverty that has taken over this country for the last 6 years. We cannot continue with this current regime. They have failed. They have failed very, very miserably. So you have a responsibility as a citizen to go out there and vote. Vote number 6. Councillor Tiawanse Gonglo and Dr. Ure Yakpawuro. Please come out. Encourage your family member. encourage your friend, encourage your co-worker, reach out to anybody you know in your neighborhood, in the district you are. Go out and vote. Go out and vote. This is the time for you to make a decision. You know, all along, we've had people running the country for 6 years, but this is the time for you as a citizen to make a decision as to whether you want to keep these people there for another 6 years that will plunge the country into more poverty, more distress, where our kids and grandkids can't go to school. You don't want that. So you can only change that by coming out to vote. So this is a plea to you. Please don't take it lightly. Please come out wherever you are, whether you're in Kipamas, whether you're in River G, whether you're in Robertsport, Cape Mount, whether you're in Sino, Grand Bassa, Margibi, everywhere, wherever you are, come out and vote for Councillor Gonglo and Yakpawuro. These are the alternative leaders we have to what we're currently saying, because these two men have sacrificed and they're well prepared to lead us for the next 6 years. Thank you very much for your time and participation in this program.
Before we leave tonight, I would like to extend the call to the Unity Party. We want the officials, especially the presidential candidate of the Unity Party, let's say, to conduct a press conference and come out to the world condemning in all forms the violence that took place in Lofa County, if they have not done. Even if they did, it has to be comprehensive, and it has to be all over in Liberia to make sure that we don't have another president who will not speak to the death of one of our citizens in Liberia. We don't want to have another president who will be quiet, like the present president, who says nothing about the death of anyone else. So the presidential candidate of the Unity Party, the Liberian People's Party, is calling on you. If you have not done, if even you have done, we want that to be, as the campaign goes on, condemning the violence that took place in Lofa County in all forms, in all worlds. And folks, this was the Bronx Show. And if you don't see us again, we will be here on Saturday before the elections. Probably we might cover the elections on that day. We're hoping to be prepared to cover the elections. If we don't cover it at the moment, I think we have some information to give on the 10th of October. I want to thank every one of you, Dr. Doe and Mrs. Tubate, for appearing on this show. And thank you so much, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
So, folks, there you have it. This is the Broom Talk Show. And tonight we were in discussion with officials of the Liberian People's Party and important issues pertaining to the elections were discussed. And finally, we have come to the end of the show, and see you on Saturday and on the 10th of October. But before then, we want you to listen to the drama. Better Liberia is possible. What's happening here?